likes the curlews cry. Nightingale sings her best, drink a pint in Hamilton's best. Curly lovers above the press, fishermen dream of the sun in the west. And so do I. And so do I. Now I can see, since the girl that I love dearly has cast her loving spell on me. This is the day that the cuckoo likes, and so do I. When the hills fall down and dip the chase, and the swallows fly to the hidden beach where the boats can't go, mountain rivers overflow, hear the squealing of the blackbirds as home they go. And so do I. Now I can see, since the girl that I love dearly has cast her loving spell on me. This is the day that the cuckoo likes, and so do I. And so do I. Supposed to represent Oliver's early days in Ballyvan. And then, as you know, he moved on to Dublin for his education. And it was the best Dublin song I could come up with that has a bit of a Longford connection as well, is the Old Triangle. So let's sing along. A hungry feeling came o'er me still again, as the mice were sleeping in my prison cell. Then the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. To begin the morning, the screw were bawling, "Now get up, you bouty, and clean out your cell." Then the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. So that was a little bit of time in Dublin, where he went to Trinity College, as you know, and his education. And then he came back to Longford, and he wasn't getting on too good, as you know, so he decided he'd head off to Cork. Am I correct in that? He was going to America. He borrowed money off his uncle. So this is the story of his Cork song. His Cork, is it?
You went as far as a tavern in Cork.
Well, there we are. I'll tell you a story what happened to me one day as I went down to Cork by the sea. The day it been warm and the sun it been high, says I a quite pint couldn't do me no harm. I went in and I called for a bottle of cider. Says the barman, I'm sorry, all the beer is sold out. Try whiskey or paddy, 10 years in the wood. Says I try cider, I've heard that it's good. Oh never, oh never, oh never again. Well, I could do 100 or 110. But I fell to the ground and I could not get up. At the law and the third of the Johnny jump up. At the law and the third I went straight for the yard, where I bumped into Brophy, the links of the guard. Come here to me, boy, don't you know I'm the law? And I up at me wished and I shattered his jaw. He fell to the ground with his knees doubled up, but it wasn't I hit him, 'twas Johnny jump up. And the next thing they met down in Cork by the say was a cripple on crutches and says it to me, I'm afraid in my life I'll be hit by a cat. Won't you help me across to the railman's back? And at the Lord and the third of that cider so sweet, he threw down his crutches and he danced on his feet. I went up the Nero, the Brentford to see, they call it the madhouse in Cork by the sea. But when I got up there, the truth I do tell, they had the poor boy locked up in the cell. Says the guard tested him, said his words if you can, around the rugged rock, the ragged rascal ran. Tell them I'm not crazy, tell them I'm not mad, 'twas only a sup of the cider I had. A man died in the Union by the name of McNabb, and they washed him and laid him outside on the slab. And after O'Connor his measurements to take, his wife brought him home to a bloody fine wake. About 12 o'clock in the beer it was high, when the corpse he sits up and says he with a sigh, I can't get to heaven, they won't let me up, till I bring them a drop of the Johnny jump up. Oh never, oh never, oh never again, if I live to 100 or 110. But I got through the ground and I could not get up, at the Lord and the third of the Johnny jump up.
I have to get a drink first.
Just to finish off a little story, as you know, we ended up in London, so I'll just sing a little London song here, if this is okay. And it's not a bad one in that it also represents, as Willie was saying there earlier, Goldsmiths' approach to people and people who were having a hard time. Have you seen the old man in the closed down market, picking up the paper with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you'll see no pride held loosely down by his side. Yesterday's papers telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me you're lonely? Say for me the sun won't shine. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man outside the seaman's mission? His memories fade with those medals that he wears. And in our winter city, the rain cries little pity for one more forgotten hero and a world that doesn't care. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for me that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. Thanks very much.
Lovely done.
So you're all very welcome on the occasion of Oliver Goldsmith's 291st birthday. Very welcome, folks. So we'll have a few little bits and pieces by you through the night. A little bit of poetry, a little bit of song, a little bit of story. And Claire Sheeran here will entertain you between both amateurs. So who's next up now on the thing? Michael.
What?
You're up.
Okay. Evening.
Evening.
I'm going to do a little excerpt from The Vicar of Wakefield. It'll just be a couple of minutes, and I hope it won't bore you too much. Funny enough, most people need to put on glasses for reading. I take them off. It's a weird one. It's a piece from chapter 4 of The Vicar of Wakefield, where Dr. Primrose, having lost his fortune to fraud, takes up a new position as a vicar in a new neighbourhood at the grand salary of £15 per year. The piece describes his new neighbourhood, his welcome, the house, and also describes a typical day in their lives. It is at first reading, a very true-seeming depiction of many aspects of life in the England of the late 1700s, but its idealisation of rural life and sentimental moralising and melodramatic incidents are, I think, countered by a sharp but good-natured irony. Goldsmith was described as having written in the manner of what angels might have heard and virgins told. So, here is a little bit, it's about 5 minutes from the Vicar of Wakefield. The place of our retreat was a little neighbourhood, consisting of farmers who tilled their own grounds, and were equal strangers to opulence and poverty. As they had almost all the conveniences of life within themselves, they seldom visited towns or cities in search of superfluity. Remote from the polite, they still retained the primeval simplicity of manners, and frugal by habit, they scarce knew that temperance was a virtue. They wrought with cheerfulness on days of labour, but observed festivities as intervals of idleness and pleasure. They kept up the Christmas carols, sent true love knots on Valentine's morning, ate pancakes on Shrovetide, shrewd their wit on the 1st of April, and religiously cracked nuts on Michaelmas Eve. Being apprised of our approach, the whole neighbourhood came out to meet their new minister, dressed in their finest clothes and preceded by pipe and tabor. A feast also was provided for our reception, at which we sat cheerfully down, and what the conversation wanted in wit was made up in laughter. Our little habitation was situated at the foot of a sloping hill, sheltered with a beautiful underwood behind and a prattling river before, on one side a meadow, on the other a green. My farm consisted of about 20 acres of excellent land, having given £100 for my predecessor's goodwill. Nothing could exceed the neatness of my little enclosures, the elms and hedgerows appearing with inexpressible beauty. My house consisted of but one story and was covered with thatch, which gave it a great air of snugness. The walls on the inside were nicely whitewashed, and my daughters undertook to adorn them with pictures of their own design. Though the same room served us for parlour and kitchen, that only made it the warmer. Besides, as it was kept with the utmost neatness, the dishes, plates and coppers being well scoured and all dispersed in bright rows on the shelves, the eye was agreeably relieved and did not want nicer furniture. There were 3 other apartments, one for my wife and me, another for our 2 daughters within our own, and a third with 2 beds for the rest of the children. The little republic to which I gave laws was regulated in the following manner. By sunrise, we all assembled in our common apartment, the fire being previously kindled by the servant. After we had saluted each other with proper ceremony, for I always thought fit to keep up some mechanical forms of good breeding, without which freedom ever destroys friendship, we all bent in gratitude to that being who gave us another day. This duty being performed, my son and I went to pursue our usual industry abroad, while my wife and daughters employed themselves in providing breakfast, which was always ready at a certain time. I allowed half an hour for this meal and an hour for dinner, which time was taken up in innocent mirth between my wife and daughters, and in philosophical arguments between my son and me. As we rose with the sun, so we never pursued our labours after it was gone down, but returned home to the expecting family, where smiling looks, a treat heart, and pleasant fire were prepared for our reception. Nor were we without guests. Sometimes Farmer Flamborough, our talkative neighbour, and often the blind piper, who would pay us a visit and taste our gooseberry wine, for the making of which we had lost neither the receipt nor the reputation. The harmless people had several ways of being good company, While one played, the other would sing some soothing ballad, Johnny Armstrong's Last Good Night, or The Cruelty of Barbara Allen. The night was concluded in the manner we began the morning, my youngest boys being appointed to read the lessons of the day. And he that read loudest, distinctest, and best was to have a halfpenny on Sunday to put in the poor's box. When so
Ready for playing, okay? Was anything on Mr. Hardcastle? I do as I am. Okay, all right.
So, sing away a minute, okay?
I'm singing a little old Irish song to sing. It's called Grace.
No, the good response to it. Not very tempting advice.
Hey, brother.
As we gather round the chapel here in Nov, in Maynham jail, I think about these last few weeks. Oh, well, they say we failed. From our school days, they had taught us we must yearn for liberty. And all I want in this dark place is to have you here with me. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn, and I will die. With all my love, I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now I know it's hard for you, my love, to ever understand the love I have for these great men, the love of my dear land. But when pouring, call me to his side down in the GPO. I had to leave my own sick bed. To him I had to go. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn, and I will die. With all my love, I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now the dawn is breaking, my heart is breaking too. And this May morn as I walk out, my thoughts will be of you. So I write some words upon the wall so everyone will know. I love so much that I could see his blood upon the rose. Let's hear you sing along. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this whole
try to do is the next excerpt from She Stoops to Conquer. It's the bar scene and Three Jolly Pigeons. I know we'll stand there.
Stand. It's understand.
Just to lead you in, Tony is the son of Mr. Hardcastle.
I'm Tony.
Here's Tony.
Hi everyone, I'm Tony.
Tony is a rake. The mother is trying to marry off.
A rake or a rig, sir?
Barry, you can have a drink, can't you?
So we're in the bar. Doing various bit Seamus we need you up here.
Yeah.
And the only legit barman. It's not beside me, make sure we do the right thing. I'm the landlord.
I'll have a pint in my hand as well.
Good man. Just,
One is the landlord.
yeah.
Seamus is the landlord's friend.
Yeah, that's it.
Who are these two?
They're first fellow and second fellow. Very important in any play.
And third fellow and fourth
In other
fellow.
words, they're the guys that are going to get shot before the end of the play. All right, we'll give it a shot. So we lead off Tony.
First fellow will say the first word.
Tony at the head of the table, a little higher than Ornette, a mallet in his hand. Now,
No, gentlemen.
hurrah, 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 bravo!
No, gentlemen. Silence for a song. The squire is going to knock himself down for a song.
Aye, a song! A song!
Song!
Then you'll sing, gentlemen, a song I made upon this alehouse, the Three Jolly Pigeons.
Let's two masters puzzle their brains with grammar and nonsense and learning. Good liquor and stout Cleveland tale gives genius a better discerning. Let them brag of their heathenish skulls, their leaves, their slates and their slaves, their queens and their wives and their foes. They're all a parcel of pigeons. When the Methodist preacher comes down, preaching that drinking is sinful, I'll wager the rascals are proud. They'll always preach this with their skin full. But when you come down with your pence for a slice of your scurvy religion, I give it to all in a sense. But you like a red and a pigeon. Then come the jorum about, and let us be merry and clever. Our hearts and our liquors are stout, and here's to the Three Jolly Pigeons. Let them cry up to one Dr. Hare, your busters, your dice, and your pigeons. But the law came out from the air. Here's a hand to the Three Jolly Pigeons. Hey,
Oh, the squire has got spunk in him.
Oh, I loves to hear him sing, because he never gives us nothing that's low.
Oh, damn anything that's low, I cannot bear it.
the genteel thing is the genteel thing anytime. If so be that a gentleman be's in a consternation accordingly.
Oh, I like the maximum of it. Master Muggins, what thought I'm obliged to dance and bear? A man may be a gentleman for all that. May this be my poison, if I may bear ever dances, but to the very gentleness of tune, water, or ardent.
What a pity. It is that the squire has not come into his own. It would be well for all the publicans within 10 miles round of him.
Aye, God, and so it would. Master Slang, I'd then show what it was to keep choice of company.
Oh, he takes after his own father for that. To be sure, old Squire Lumpkin was the finest gentleman I ever set me eyes on. For winding to straight horn, or beating a ticket for a hare or a wench, he never had his fellow. It was a saying in the place that he kept the best horses, dogs and girls in the whole country.
Begod, and when I'm of age, I'll be no bastard, I promise you. I have been thinking of Bet Bouncer and the miller's grey mare to begin with. But come, my boys, drink about and be merry, for you pay no reckoning.
Well, Stingo, what's the matter?
Sir, there be two gentlemen in a post-chaise at the door. They have lost their way upon the forest. They are talking something about Mr. Ardcastle.
As sure as can be, one of them must be the gentleman that's coming down to court my sister. Do they seem to be Londoners?
I believe they may be, sir. They look woundedly like Frenchmen.
Oh, then desire them to step this way, and I'll set them right in a twinkling. The gentlemen, as they mayn't be good enough company for you, step down for a moment, and I'll be with you in the squeezing of a lemon. Go, peasantry.
Father-in-law.
Father-in-law has been calling me whelp and hound this half year. Now, if I pleased, I could be so revenged upon the old Grumbletorian. But then I'm afraid. Afraid of what? I shall soon be worth 1,500 a year. Let him frighten me out of that if he can.
What a tedious, uncomfortable day we have had of it. We were told it was but 40 miles across the country, and we have come above 30.
And all, Marrow, from that unaccountable reserve of yours that would not let us inquire more frequently on the way.
I own Hastings. I am willing to lay myself under an obligation to everyone I meet, and often stand the chance of an unmannerly answer.
Well, at present, however, we are not likely to receive an answer.
No offence, gentlemen, but I've been told you have been inquiring for one Mr. Hardcastle in these parts. Do you know what part of the country you are in?
Not in the least, sir, but should thank you for information.
Nor the way you came?
No, sir, but if you can inform us of the...
Why, gentlemen, if you know neither the road you're going, nor where you are, nor the road you came, the first thing I have to inform you is that you have lost your way.
We needed no ghost to tell us that.
Pray, gentlemen, may I be so bold as to ask the place from whence you came?
No, it's not necessary told directing us where we want to go.
And no offence, but question for question is all fair, you know. Pray, gentlemen, is not this same Hardcastle a cross-grained, old-fashioned, whimsical fellow with an ugly face and a daughter and a pretty son?
Yes, well, we've not seen the gentleman, but he has a family you mentioned.
The daughter, a tall, traipsing, trolloping, talkative maypole. The son, a pretty, well-bred, agreeable youth that everybody is fond of.
Our information differs. In this, the daughter is said to be well-bred and beautiful. The son, an awkward booby. And spoiled at his mother's apron string.
Then, gentlemen, all I have to tell you is that you won't reach Mr. Hardcastle's house this night, I believe.
Unfortunate.
It's a damned long, dark, boggy, dirty, dangerous way. Stingo! Stingo? Stingo, tell the gentleman the way to Mr. Hardcastle's. Mr. Hardcastle of
Quagmire Marsh. You understand me?
Master Hardcastles,
Yes.
lackadaisy, my masters, you come a deadly deal wrong. When you came to the bottom of the hill, you should have crossed down Squash Lane.
Cross down Squash Lane.
Then you were to keep straight forward till you came to the 4 roads.
Come to where 4 roads meet.
Aye, yeah, but you must be sure to take only one of them.
Aye, sir, you're facetious again.
Then, keeping to the right, you are to go sideways till you come upon Crack Skull Common. There you must look sharp for the track of the wheel and go forward till you come to Farmer Murren's barn. Coming to the farmer's barn, you are to turn to the right, and then to the left, and then to the right about again, till you find the old mill.
Zounds, man, we could have soon find out about the latitude.
What's to be done now?
What's to be done?
Maybe,
I think the landlord, John's
I think the house, something about promising the house.
Yeah.
The house promises to put a poor reception. Though perhaps the landlord can accommodate us.
Alack, my master, we have but one spare bed in the whole house.
And to my knowledge, that's taken up by 3 lodgers already. I've hit it. Don't you think, Zingo, our landlady could accommodate the gentleman by the fire with 3 chairs and a bolster?
Oh, I hate sleeping by the fireside.
And I detest 3 chairs and a bolster.
You do you? Then let me see. What if you go on a mile further to the Buck's Head, the old Buck's Head on the hill, and of the best inns, one of the best inns in the whole county.
So we've escaped an adventure for this night, maybe.
Baby singing at your father's house is near.
Mum, you fool, you. Let them find that out. You have only to keep on straight forward until you come to a large old house by the roadside. You will see a pair of large horns over the door. That's the sign. Drive up the yard and call stoutly about you.
But so we are obliged to you. We will not lose our way. We servants can find the way.
No, but I tell you though, the landlord is rich and going to leave off business. So he wants to be thought of as a gentleman, saving your presence. He'll be forgiving you his company, and if you could mind him, he'll persuade you that his mother was an alderman and his aunt a justice of the peace.
Troublesome old blade, to be sure, but as keep as good wines as any in the whole country around.
Well, if he supplies us with these, we shall want no further connection. We are to turn to the right. Is that what you said?
Oh, no, straight forward. I'll just step myself and show you a piece of the way. Mom.
Bless my heart. For a sweet, pleasant, damned mischievous son of a whore. Chin chin. National anthem, and our very own Willie is going to lead off, and feel free to join in.
Just before, after this, there's food.
After this, there'll be a little bit of finger food and the birthday cake, so just hang on after this. We'll bring in
What about port?
Port is ready, isn't it?
Port is for me, not for you. Tony.
I'm not so sure about this, but I have one of our founding members who's not here tonight, Shawnee Kent, there. There was a tank. He was he initiated the Goldsmiths International Festival. But he had great fondness for Leo Casey because he lived up in that part of the world as well. And we listened to him many nights. He always had a song from Leo Casey. He had a love song of somebody who was in love around the area up there in Loughree and Rathmore. And it's quite a local song. And I'm not so sure if I can get all the words, but anyway, it's a nice little rendering, and I'll try my best. If I don't get all the verses, I'll just get one or two of the chorus at least.
Wet the tongue there, Willie. It's obviously very warm in here tonight. He's getting very thirsty, so you'll understand.
Yeah, man. I have never spent so long in my chambers reading without sending somebody down. Oh, I placed the silver in her pan by any smiling tide, and vowed when summer time came on, I'd claim her as a bride. But when the summer time came on, she dwelt beyond the sea, and I was far and far away from Gracie O'Macree. Oh, bonny are the woods of Tang, and green thy hills Rathmore, and soft the sunlight ever shone on very sloping shores. But there the eyes I love in tears shine ever mournfully, as I am far and far away from Gracie O'Macree. Oh, when battle hymns were playing loud to lips with soldier glee, one toast I always fondly bid to Gracie O'Macree. Oh, bonny are the woods of Tang, and green thy hills Rathmore, and soft the sunlight ever shone on Derry's sloping shore. But there the eyes I love in tears shine ever mournfully, when I am far and far away from Gracie O'Macree. Oh, when battle hymns were playing loud to lips with soldier glee, one toast I always fondly placed to Gracie O'Macree.
Well, sure. All right, folks. That's the way we'll be here in a minute.
About 5 minutes to
It's open for the birthday cake as well. But look, while we're waiting, if you don't mind, because it's the 291st birthday party, we're going to sing Happy Birthday to Oliver up here on the wall. So all together. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Oliver. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip. Hooray! 291 more times. Hip hip. Thanks very much.
Just need that second take one. Can I sing the party march?
Party march.
Super.
Let me down all my
Absolutely.
Oh, all the morning, the hair I have spent it in good company. And of all the harm that I ever did, alas, it was too lovely. And all I have done for want of wit to spend our leisure time to sit a while. There is a fair lady in this town who sorely has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks and tender lips, I own she has my heart. Oh, sweet good night and joy be with you all. Of all the comrades that here I have, they are sorry for my going away. And of all the sweethearts that here I love, they would wish me one more night to stay. And since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should fall, I will gently smile and softly call. Good night and joy be with you all.
Thanks very much. I have to thank
Yeah, about
Take a bow, boy.
So the wonderful actors, one night only.
More.
Oh, no. God preserve us.
The marriages in Goldsmiths times were arranged. I think the song I'm going to sing will stand that test. It is timeless. The song is The Water is Wide. The water is wide, I cannot swim more, and neither have I got wings to fly. Give me a boat waxes cold, love fades away like morning dew.
And they give us a song there, Claire. Claire will sing us a song now, a song or two. We need to recharge our planes.
I skimmed across black waters without once submerging under the banks of an urban morning. That hungers the forest light much, much more than the mountains ever do. And she
do, Seamus is going to come next with a bit of poetry, but he's just tiny bit indisposed. Might just do one more quick and then we'll have Seamus.
Okay, I'll sing a little Christy Moore song this time. If you know it, you can sing along. I am a sailor, you're my first mate. We sign on together, we're coupled our fate. Roll on the anchor, determined not to fail. For the heart's treasure, together we set sail. But no map to guide us, we steer on course. Roll out the storms when the winds were gale force. Sail out the doldrums in patience and hope. Working together, we learned how to cope. Life is an ocean, love is a boat. In troubled waters, you keep us afloat. When we started the voyage, there's just me and you. Now get around us, we'll have our own crew. Thank you.
I think our MC has, so I'll have to step into the breach with him for a minute. Okay? But, he's there, sorry.
You were changing.
I changed the costume.
I came back in to introduce the wonderful Seamus McCormick from the Three Jolly Pigeons.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to recite a few extracts from Oliver Goldsmith's famous poem, The Deserted Village. I'm going to start off by the extract about the schoolmaster in the schoolhouse. Beside yon straggling fence that skirts the way, with blossomed firs unprofitably gay, there in his noisy mansion, skilled to rule, the village master taught his little school. A man severe he was, and stern to view. I knew him well, and every truant knew. For well they...
Well, at the boarding
Well, sorry?
Well,
Had the boarding tremblers learned to trace the day's disasters in his morning face. Well that after counterfeited glee, and all his jokes for many a joke appeal. But well the busy whispers circling round conveyed the dismal tidings when they frowned. The village all declared how much he knew.
For certain
he could write and cipher too. Lands he could measure, times and tides presage, and e'en the story ran that he could gauge. In arguing too, like most people in pubs, the parson earned his skill, while he though vanquished, he could argue still. While words of learned strength and thundering sound amazed the gazing rustics ranged around. And still they gazed, and still their wonder grew at one small head that carried on. It passes all the very spot where many a trample is begun. Now the other excerpt is my favourite piece, although I was delighted that I'll have to be out when they're hesitating, because getting up for the first time in my life, reciting a bit of poetry, is something different than spending 40 years lecturing in economics. And I don't have to learn rhyming couplets to kind of go from one to another. I talk about different ideas about economics, but anyway. This bit very much is related to people living abroad and thinking about coming home. And Goldsmith never came home, although he said to his friend Bob Bryant of Ballymurray House, that he was going to come home the year before he died in 1773. Now, the Deserted Village was published in 1770, and he's thinking about coming home, and in part of this the Deserted Village, it goes like this. In all my wanderings round this world of care, in all my griefs, and God hath given my share, I still had hopes my latest hours to crown, amidst these humble bowers to lay me down. Sorry?
To husband out lives.
To husband out life's taper at the close, and keep the flame from wasting by the powers.
In all my wanderings.
I still at home.
I still have hopes, for pride's attends a sail around
Among the swain
to sow my good brown skins, around the fire an evening group to draw, and tell of all I felt and all I saw. And as a hare from whom the hounds and horns were seen, pants from the place from whence it first refrained, I still had hopes, my long vexations past, here to return and die at home at last. Thank you.
Very much.
Seamus, you must have been imbibing too many pints. The memory's fading, I think.
I think so.
Very short one, I think.
Anyway, thanks very much, Seamus. That was great. So, Arthur, you're up next.
Okay, thank you. I hope I have the right piece here. I do, yeah. We've had, Seamus has just given us some examples of Goldsmiths poetry, and Michael here has read from Goldsmiths' novel, The Vicar of Wakefield. I'm going to continue now with a piece from Goldsmiths' prose, and we're going to finish then with an example of Goldsmiths' drama. And he was a master of all trades. But this is a piece from The Bee, which was a very short-lived literary magazine founded by Goldsmith in 1759. The first issue was on the 6th of October 1759, and this is from the second issue. It lasted until November 1759, so it wasn't the most successful of literary ventures. But I would hasten to add that there's a lot of modern literature that won't be read in 200 years' time. So even though it was only very short lasting, it has stayed with us. The first part of what I'm going to read deals with a phenomenon known maybe to men particularly. If you're ever out for a walk and you see what you consider a very attractive lady just in front of you, in other words from behind, she looks great, and then you sort of you speed up your walk and you start to look sideways, and then you look back, and what was promised doesn't deliver. And only the men present will know what I'm talking about, because I'm very, very much doubt if such thoughts would enter any lady's head. But anyway, this is about a walk that takes place, and it takes place in Hyde Park, which in 1759 was becoming fashionable. Now you'll hear the Mall mentioned, but that's not the great Mall, the great ceremonial Mall that we know now. That's an early 20th century creation. The Mall at that time was quite a narrow road and very heavily tree-lined. And the last bit in the preamble I want to say is that, I suppose, before the time of social media, and before the time of everyone, I think, likes to show off and likes to show their finery, and social media is taking that role now, but in the Augustan age, the only way you could show yourself off was simply dress up in your finery and parade your carriage through the great parks of London. And if you didn't have a carriage, you simply walked. So it was a very, very important social event to actually walk through a park. And that's where all, nowadays we have comments under Facebook. In the 1750s and that, the comments were literally said to, as people walked by, you commented on them. So this is a piece from The Bee in 1759, and I think Goldsmith is writing as a person called Geoffrey, I think. So, and it's called Undress. Foreigners observe that there are no ladies in the world more beautiful or more ill-dressed than those of England. Our country women have been compared to those pictures where the face is the work of a Raphael, but the draperies thrown out by some empty pretender destitute of taste and entirely unacquainted with design. But not only ladies of every shape and complexion, but of every age too, are possessed of this unaccountable passion of dressing in the same manner. A lady of no quality can be distinguished from a lady of some quality only by the redness of her hands. And a woman of 60, masked, might easily pass for her granddaughter. I remember a few days ago to have walked behind a damsel, tossed out in all the gaiety of 15. Her dress was loose, unstudied, and seemed the result of conscious beauty. I called up all my poetry on this occasion, and fancied 20 cupids prepared for execution in every folding of her white negligee. I had prepared my imagination for an angel's face, but what was my mortification to find that my imaginary goddess was none other than my cousin Hannah, 4 years older than myself, and I shall be 62 on the 12th of next November. As my cousin had not put on all this finery for nothing, she was at that time sallying out to the park, when I had overtaken her. Perceiving, however, that I had on my best wig, she offered if I would squire her there to send home the footman. Though I trembled for our reception in public, yet I could not, with any civility, refuse. So, to be as gallant as possible, I took her hand in my arm, and thus we marched in together. When we made our entry to the park, two antiquated figures, so polite and so tender as we seemed to be, soon attracted the eyes of the company. As we made our way among crowds who were out to show their finery as well as we, wherever we came, I perceived we brought good humour in our train. The polite could not forbear smiling, and the vulgar burst out into a horse laugh at our grotesque figures. Cousin Hannah, who was perfectly conscious of the rectitude of her own appearance, attributed all this mirth to the oddity of mine, while I cordially placed the whole to her account. Thus, from being two of the best-natured creatures alive, before we got halfway up the mall, we both began to grow peevish, and like two mice on a string, endeavoured to revenge the impertinence of others upon ourselves. I'm amazed, Cousin Geoffrey, says Miss, that I can never get you to dress like a Christian. I know we should have the eyes at the park upon us, with your great wig so frizzed, and yet so beggarly, and your monstrous muff. I hate those odious muffs. I could have patiently borne a criticism on all the rest of my equipage, but as I always had a peculiar veneration for my muff, I could not forbear being piqued a little. And throwing my eyes with a spiteful air on her bosom, I could heartily wish, madam, replied I, that for your sake my muff was cut into a tippet. As my cousin by this time was grown heartily ashamed of her gentleman usher, and as I was never fond of any kind of exhibition myself, it was mutually agreed to retire for a while to one of the seats, and from that retreat remark on others as freely as they had remarked on us. When seated, we continued silent for some time, employed in very different speculations. Cousin Hannah regarded every well-dressed woman as a victorious rival, hated every face that seemed dressed in good humour, or wore the appearance of greater happiness than her own. I perceived her uneasiness, and attempted to lessen it by observing that there was no company in the park today. To this she readily assented. And yet, says she, it is full enough of scrubs of one kind of another. My smiling at this observation gave her spirits to pursue the bent of her inclination, and now she began to exhibit her skill in secret history, as she found me disposed to listen. Observe, she says to me, that old woman in tawdry silk, and dressed out even beyond the fashion. That is Miss Biddy Evergreen. Miss Biddy, it seems, has money. And as she considers that money was never so scarce as it is now, she seems resolved to keep what she has to herself. She is ugly enough, you see, Yet, I assure you, she has refused several offers to my own knowledge within this 12 months. Let me see. 3 gentlemen from Ireland who studied the law, 2 waiting captains, her doctor, and a Scotch preacher who would like to have carried her off. All her time is passed between sickness and finery. Thus she spends the whole week in a close chamber, with no other company but her monkey, her apothecary and cat, and comes dressed out to the park every Sunday to show her airs, to get new lovers, to catch a new cold, and to make new work for the doctor. Ah, Miss Mazard, and you we should not miss her in the park, she in the monstrous Prussian bonnet. Miss, though so very fine, was bred a milliner, and might have had some custom if she had minded her business. But the girl was fond of finery, and instead of dressing her customers, laid out all her goods in adorning herself. Every new gown she put on impaired her credit. She still, however, went on improving her appearance and lessening her little fortune, and is now, you see, become a belle and a bankrupt. My cousin was proceeding in her remarks, which were interrupted by the approach of the very lady she had been so freely describing. Miss had perceived her at a distance and approached to salute her. I found by the warmth of the 2 ladies' protestations that they had been long intimate, esteemed friends and acquaintances. Both were so pleased at this happy encounter that they were resolved not to part for the day. So we all crossed the park together, and I saw them into a hackney coach at the gate of St. James's. I could not, however, help observing that they are generally most ridiculous themselves, who are apt to see most ridicule in others. Thank you.
Better than us on the piano.
We're all amateurs.
And more importantly, thanks to all of you for coming. So we'll be here shortly, birthday cake, and enjoy the rest of the week.